Yeah.
And that's a good lead-in for my number 5. Is Amanda Jennings' The Storm is the latest one, because that was late November for one of my final interviews of the year, and that was so good as a coercive control example of coercive control within the genre that I had to include it, because it dealt with it in such a way that I wasn't expecting it, because it wasn't about just domestic violence. There was something else in the book too. And for anyone that wants to read something a little different within the domestic sphere, this is the book for you.
Sounds good. What's your number 5, Sam?
Another absolutely sickening book that I love. I've really got into gore, you know. The book club has corrupted me, and I love you all for it. Thank you. It's Rob Ashman, Killing Pretties. Now, the characters of Damien and Elsa in this are insanely good. So good. Like, you couldn't forget them in a million years. And the things that they do and how the story progresses and just really creepy things that Rob puts in. These characters seem to have written this book themselves, and I ordered my friend Julie a signed copy of this, and she couldn't decide whether she liked me or not after it, because she was like, it's brilliant, but I can't believe you gave me this to read. And I told Rob that, which he thought was funny, but so good. And he wrote this really nice letter to her as well, explaining where the character of Elsa came from. And oh, it's so good and so wrong. Oh my God, it's so wrong. It's just brilliant, creepy, twisted, absolutely twisted. So good.
Nothing wrong with being a little twisted. I mean, for twisted books, Neil Broadfoot has been one of the eye openers of the year, because he knows how to write gore in a way that'll make you go a little bit weird, especially when he's talking about entrails. Oh God!
I like a bit of gore in my books sometimes, but it does depend on who they are. And I think all our number 5s are people we've interviewed this year, which is really nice.
Yeah.
Because my number 5 is North Sea Tale by Chris Beck.
Oh, that's on my list. Chris Beck was a fantastic interview.
And it is, and I lied earlier, it's the third time me and my dad correspond, because North Sea Tale is amazing. Like, he doesn't think it's a crime novel, but it is a crime novel. It's a classic locked room mystery, but on a trawler in the Arctic.
Okay, I love locked room mysteries, so yeah.
It's special. It's a really special read. It's really interesting. The characters are great. He gets like life on board a trawler really accurate.
Yeah.
As well, and like, obviously, because he's from Hull and it's set in Hull, it's like very accurate in sort of the sense of like bringing that sort of area of Hull where those fishermen lived and things to life as well. And it's just another one it's a really good read.
One of the books I'm looking forward to next year, well, if and when it comes out on Audible, is Danny Marshall's Anthrax Island, and it's about some chemical people that have to go and sort out a chemical spill on an island somewhere. It's a locked room mystery, which I really enjoy, locked room stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that, because it's his debut as well.
Yeah. I do love locked room mysteries are really good, and I think they take a special sort of ability to write, because they're so confined and really clever, aren't they, in their own way? And I like unusual locked room mysteries. So one of my favourite locked room mysteries is 1222 by Anne Holt, which is on a train that's like stuck in a station high in Norway, and this is another really good one. It's really atmospheric and different. Not gory at all, like Killing Pretties.
Oh, so good. So good. So wrong. So wrong. So good. That's it in your head. Honestly, it's like I've not told you anything about it, but it's just one of those books. Don't read the blurb. Don't look at anything about it. Don't listen to anything about it. Just read it, and then you'll have no idea. Even if you read the blurb, though, you're not going to have a clue what's going to happen.
That's the sign of a good blurb for me. If you don't know.
I'm listening
Yeah.
to you two and adding so much to my Amazon basket. It's crazy.
I'm doing the same. I keep leaning forward and typing, and that's why.
So number 4, we are all going to be different again, because number 4 is my second non-crime book that's on the list.
Number 4 for me is Doug Johnston, and that is oh goodness me, I'm trying to remember, because his new one, The
Dark Matter.
Yeah, The Dark Matter is first in a series of 3, and then there's another one, The Chill. The reason I chose this is because it's the start of the series, and it's when you get introduced to the characters. The characters are so uniquely different, because it's about 3 women who run they run two different things at once. They run PIs and a funeral directors, which is really unusual as a backdrop to a crime novel. And as my list gets narrowed down, the books get stranger and stranger. So,
and interestingly, without giving away the rest of my list, yours was shortlisted for the McIlvenney Prize.
Absolutely.
And I might have a McIlvenney Prize member on my list as well.
Well, I always find award lists are a good indicator of quality for me. And I'm very surprised that there's only one on my list that won this year, because normally that's how I select my books. But because of it being introduced to new writers, being thanks to the interview panel, and I've been able to do different things this year. So it's been a real change for me, not relying on award lists for my reading.
I think the McIlvenney Prize, especially the shortlist of that, I read the entire shortlist because me and Sam interviewed the entire shortlist, didn't we, Sam, before the prize announcement? And I know which one was my favourite on the list, but I honestly couldn't pick the winner from it, which we'll talk about later as well. But I genuinely thought all of them were excellent. Like there was not a book on the shortlist that you didn't think could have won that prize.
Yeah.
They were all great.
And the only reason that it's Chris Brookmire and his wife as the double act, the only reason that didn't make my top 10 is because I read that the previous year. So that would have been in my top 10 if I'd read it this year, but I didn't. I read it the year before.
Yeah, that's also really good. So, Sam, you're number 4?
David Blake, Horsey May. It would have been whichever David Blake book I read last would have hit my top 10 list. I could easily have just had, more than one from some of these authors, and David Blake's one of them. The Icon, such another good book. He always has some really interesting theme with everything. So I'm not going to say too much about it because I know you're going to read it at some point, Kaz. But brilliant books. I discovered David Blake through the book club, and I've read everything now, all of his crime anyway. I'm waiting with anticipation for the Wherryman, but brilliant book again. This is one of the books that made me so emotional. You get so attached to these characters and so invested, and the crimes and the team and the friendships, you just feel like you could be just living there among them. It's such a brilliant book.
And
Absolutely.
you've interviewed him twice this year, haven't you?
I have, and now you've stolen him, and I don't like you anymore.
I know. Well, under our new rules, he's now mine next year to interview, which is
Not
great.
happy about it. At least we'll have more books to read, but I don't know. Maybe we'll have to have him twice because I need my fix of an hour with David Blake. He's hilarious. It's so much fun. And we have a bit of banter as well. He lets me get away with being a bit cheeky, which is nice.
Well, you need a bit of cheek during an interview, don't you? And cheek gets it rolling. Because if they're just a cheeky back, you can get a really interesting answer, can't you? If you get
probably
normal answers,
instead of putting up with me again, I get really giddy talking to him. And then because obviously he wrote everything, so I can talk to him about everything that I'm thinking. And I don't know, he must just get sick of me. But yeah, it's brilliant. Another brilliant book, brilliant series. And at some point, I want to read some of his humorous stuff as well. But our reading lists have been tight this year, so
they are a good series. I've not read Forcing Me Here, but I have read a few of David Blake's books, and they're really good. I have read A Dark Matter, which is really good. My number 4 is Lovecraft Country by Matt Ruff, which is another one that's a bit different. It's been made into a series, which I've not watched yet. And it's about a road trip and Lovecraftian kind of horror things and racism and all sorts of other stuff. It's a brilliant read. And again, I don't want to explain too much without giving away the plot, but it's a really good read, and it's a bit different. If you like kind of horror and interesting things like that, then it's one to be on people's lists. It is very good, and it's another one that, again, like Mother Loves Me, I finished it and immediately packaged it up and posted it to someone to read.
Yeah,
because they needed to have it in their lives.
What
you're really good
what
at
is
that.
it
I'm
about
terrible about sharing books. I'll buy people books all day long, but I have to have them all.
What is it for you guys about when the books cross genres? Because I like to read some books that talk about more than one genre in the same book.
I love cross-genre books, especially urban fantasy. Like, I'm a really big fan of urban fantasy, which brings in like magic and stuff into like crime and stuff, things like that. So like Dresden Files, Rivers of London, things like that. Absolutely all-time, some of my all-time favorite reads.
Yeah, definitely a good thing to do. I like to, because CJ2, there was definitely my prime example between cross and horror this year.
Yeah, your interview with her was excellent. Like, I loved listening to her. She's another one who's like being added to my list from listening to an interview with her.
Yeah, her latest, The Other People, was just really good as a horror cross.
Yeah. Well, if you like dipping into horror, Lovecraft Country, which is my number 4, is a really good read.
You're definitely going to have to give that a go then, because that'll more than likely appeal to me.
Yeah.
So as we get into number 3, guys, what would you say is your honourable mention time?
Oh, we're going honourable mentions. Oh, I don't know. Do you want to start with your honourable mentions, Alex?
I'm going to go for Not Far From the Tree by Rob Parker and The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware.
Nice. Sam, what were your honourable mentions?
Queeve McDonald, A Man with One of Those Faces. Crime has never been so funny. I mean, and I listened to it on audio as well, and the narrator, Morgan C. Jones, is brilliant. And Bunny McGarry, what a character.
Oh, definitely, yeah. You can't have
you need to get some Bunny McGarry in your life, Kaz.
I will look it up.
This one, I love this book, and I know it's not in my top 10, but Charlotte Levin, I Could Be You, character of Constance. It's just what a beautiful, flawed crime book. Just so interesting. And I just loved her. She's such a good character. And there's so many things to love about that book. And my other one, oh, there's so many good books that I couldn't put on the top 10. I'll give you one more, Max Stayek, The Witch Hunter. Creeper. Oh my word, can that man do Creeper? Such a good book. I need to send it to you, Kaz. I've been saying it for weeks, and I will. I'll actually now finish work. I'll get on with it. Get my act together. So I don't want to say too much about that either, but it is Creeper and really good. And there are people in there that you want to drop kick. They're so well written.
Oh,
really good, yeah.
yeah,
And I think I'll leave it at those three, even though I could probably Leslie McAvoy, The Murder Mile, and Abby Frost, The Guest House as well have to be mentioned. And I'm probably leaving people out that I really want to mention, but I could literally just sit here and tell you something good about every book I've read this year. So there you go. They're my 5 honourable mentions.
I've got 4. I've got The Secrets Between Us by Valerie Keogh, which at the beginning of the year when I read it was solidly on my top 10 list, and has only bumped off because I've read so much other good things in between. So it's well worth reading. If you've not read Valerie, she's amazing. She's a lovely lady, and her writing's great. I've got Stone Cold Trouble by Amar Anwar. Zack and Jags are brilliant characters and lived in my mind for so long after I read the book. I interviewed him this year.
Sorry.
Pardon? I just what?
The one when you said lived inside your head, I thought about Caroline England's Natalie Batch books. So
yeah
have a
Zack and Jackson's Stone Cold Trouble for me. I went out and bought the second book as soon as I'd read the first, because I was like, I need more of them in my life. The Rhino Conspiracy by Peter Hayne was on mine. He was probably one of my favourite interviews of the year.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
He was a really nice guy, really interesting. His book isn't something I would have bought, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And then my final honourable mention was Dangerous Destiny by Chris Longmuir. It's another 5-star read that didn't make my list, and I don't give many 5-star reviews, so it does need to be on the honourable mentions.
Yeah, now here's a question, guys. What do you think about celebrity authors? Because, of course, Peter Hayne is probably more known as a politician than a writer.
I think Peter Hayne's written a lot of non-fiction, though, and his fiction draws quite heavily on his understanding of politics and his life. And I think that's what makes it so good. I think he's used his knowledge to make a really well-written thriller.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I think it doesn't necessarily bother me, celebrities writing books, but they have to be good. And there's some that I've picked up and just thought, no.
I don't know about
chapters.
You guys, but I read Richard Osman's Thursday Murder Club this year as well.
And
I really, really enjoyed that. That was really good. And I think you're right, Alex. There's an element sometimes where you can get celebrities that write a book and you're not convinced that they're very good or they've written it. Yeah. But there are some where they're well known for something else and then they've written a book and you're like, how are you this good at multiple things? And I think Richard Osman and Peter Hayne are both in that category. Both their books were really good.
I mean, I've seen Richard Osman at festivals, and he's been going on about Thursday Murder Club and the series about that for a while. So I'm definitely gonna have to give it a go, because I think from the reputation he's gained just from that book, he may well win some awards next year. I think. So
He might. So shall we go into the top three? Let's do our top three each. My top three is going to be unsurprising. Like my third book is not going to be a shock because this is someone I've been a fan of since forever. Like, she even tells a story sometimes when we go and see her about how we went to see her doing a book signing in Waterstones, and she was just on a little table down at the front and no one else went to see her, and we spent about an hour chatting to her. This was like way back when one of her first books was out. So this is how long I've liked and stalked this author. So they're book 3. If they've got a book out, this is one of the authors, like Mr. Craven, who is going to be on my top 10 list. So my book 3 is Postscript Murders by Ellie Griffiths.
Ellie Griffiths is definitely one of the authors that I would actually consider to be a personal friend by now, because I've followed her everywhere.
Yeah. Same for me. I consider her a friend, and Postscript Murders is like a love letter to writing and readers. And
that's a great description of it. Yeah,
it's beautiful. And the characters, like, you know, when we talk about such good characters, every character in the Postscript Murders is wonderful. Like, you just want to be their friends. It's like a warm hug of a book.
Is it Edwin? That's the old man, isn't it? Yeah,
he's wonderful, isn't he? And Natalka, who's like the carer, they're all brilliant. They're so good. It's such a good book.
Yeah.
What was your number 3, Alex?
That was Will Carver's The Samaritans. Yeah. Sorry, Sam. What are you saying?
Sorry, over each other, Alex. Go.
Yeah, that was Will Carver's The Samaritans was my number 3.
Yeah, Good Samaritans.
Yeah.
Why did you have Will Carver at number 3?
Well, ironically, it wasn't The Samaritans I read first. It was Nothing Important Happens Today, because it was nominated as a Theakstons. And when I was looking for some of the early interviews when I joined you guys, he had to be one of the ones I'd looked at, because Nothing Important Happens Today was such a unique story, but The Samaritans was even better because it was looking at the life of a serial killer in such a different way to what you'd consider to be the norm. And he's written another one this year. I think that's the Hollow Death Trip.
Yeah,
I've not read it yet, but it's another one that I'm waiting for. After we finish, that I probably will read before the year's out.
Awesome. Sam, your number 3 is an author that you like to stalk.
I do, and I've been reading Malcolm Holland Drake's books since before I joined the book club. So I was thrilled to bits to get to kind of have a chat with him, bit of an interview, sat chatting for an hour just before we recorded a promo, and that man, he's so lovely. He's just been one of my favourite people to interview. So a bit of an honourable mention, because I didn't think it would be fair to just put a load of books by the same author in, same as I said about David Blake. But the Harrogate Crime series, I'm a massive, massive fan of the Harrogate Crime series. So that's my honourable mention for Malcolm. But Bridging the Gulf is my number 3 by Malcolm Holland Drake, and beautiful, sad. I'm going to steal some words from the blurb, thought-provoking. So many things about this book just spoke to me in such a way. And I was still the same husband, but I'm not an army wife anymore. So there were so many elements of the book that were so touching and so poignant, and it's really enjoyable read as well, making it sound like it was really hard going. It's not, but it was. It reached me in a way that I don't think a book ever has done before. So,
have you read more than one book by him this year?
Yes, I've also read, what's the other one? I've read there this year, which is part of the Cyril Bennett, DCI Cyril Bennett Harrogate crime series. And he's starting, he's just signed a contract for some new books that I think it's Merseyside. Don't quote me on that, could be wrong.
It's so tricky, isn't it, when you've read more than one by an author that you really like? Because I've read The Lantern Men, which is the other sort of the next Ruth Galloway series, and I've got Nighthawks that I've stolen off my dad because he got a proof copy downstairs to read. But Postscript Murders by Ellie just had to be the one. Like when I was choosing between them, like I love everything she writes, but that had to be the one just because it is such. If you read a lot of crime, or you know a lot of crime authors, or as we're all admins of a book club, so we do know a lot of people like that, and there's so many things that just as you're reading it are like, yeah, this is like so many crime authors, this is so many members of our book group, this is
yeah.
I've not read any of Ellie Griffith's books yet, so I know that I've got some treats to come.
I'd start with Postscript Murders then, or something like that, because it's book 2 in Harbinder's series, and The Stranger Diaries, which is book 1, was actually my book of the year last year.
And it also won an Edgar, so it tells you how good it is.
Yeah. And it was my book of the year because it was like gothic and wonderful. And there was like in The Stranger Diaries, there's a story that she writes that's by a Victorian like gothic story, and I love Victorian ghost stories, and I was like, how have I not heard of this author who's written this Victorian ghost story? I'm going to go and Google them and like buy their books, and she's made it up completely. She just
did the same thing. Yeah,
and the story, it was so believable. Like going, why have I not read this story?
Yeah,
but yeah, so they're really good. Number two from everyone. We're all really different again for number 2. Mine's a kid's book.
Go for it, Kath.
My number 2 is Popkin and Stubbs by Sophie Green, which is what film noir and detective noir should be in a kid's book. It's glorious. And I kept reading it, and I was reading it, and every night I was in bed going to my husband, this book is brilliant, this is such a good book, this is like a film noir and like a book, it's so good, I'm gonna like read all of these, I'm gonna buy all of the books by this person. They're really good. It's like atmospheric, dark, creepy, there's ghosts, and it's for kids, and it is better than most like noir films that you've gone to see. What's your number 2, Alex?
Number 2 for me is One Way Street by Trevor Wood. That is the second in his Jimmy series, which coincidentally, for those of you looking for it in hardback and paperback, isn't out until March 2021. So I do feel quite jammy that I've actually been able to read it early, because these days audiobooks are coming out at the same time as the ebook. So they're quite lucky, really. Yeah. So nice. That'll be probably one of the award winners of 2021, because of course Trevor is the winner of the debut Dagger with his first man on the street. So yeah, the reason I chose the second one is because I love the characters and the way they develop in number 2 was why I put it over the top of number 1.
And number 2 for you, Sam, is down from the person who is responsible for us being able to do live things.
It is. This was my number 1 book for a while, till the number 1 spot knocked it off. So I've talked about this book all over the place, and the author's well aware that I love this book because I keep tweeting him and messaging him. But I did give him to you for an interview next year because you've read more. I've read 1 so far. I'm dying to read the rest of the books, and I own some of them already, ready to read them. And it is The Birdwatcher by William Shaw.
Well,
Oh,
William Shaw will be the first one of. Oh, sorry.
Go on,
Yeah.
Alex.
William Shaw. Once Kaz has interviewed it, and that'll be the first author that all three of us have interviewed live. So that'll be really interesting to see.
I haven't interviewed him yet.
No, I don't think it will actually. You've had him, and he's interviewed himself with Leslie Thompson. And once I've got him, it'll be the first. I'll be the first host after you. Sam's not had him yet. It's going to be a treat when she does.
Yeah.
To Kaz, because you've just read more books, which we thought would be fairer. But I'm going to try and whiz through the rest of them over Christmas. I've got so many books to read, but The Bird Watcher, what is not to laugh about that book?
It was
just hope more about the main character of William. I've just gone on about it so much. Absolutely love the story, the setting. It is a standalone, but it does introduce Cupidie, who is a female detective. So technically it's a standalone, but it's when we meet her. And I don't know, because I've not read anymore, I don't know if the character of William comes up again, but I really, really, really hope that at some point there is a sequel.
So I have not read The Bird Watcher, but I have read other books in the Cupidie series, and I don't have The Bird Watcher. I've got Gravesend to read.
Right, I'm buying you The Bird Watcher and sending it to you.
And you do hear about William again, and the characters of Cupidie and her daughter are like so good. I love the character of her daughter in those books. Like,
she's a fascinating teenager.
Yeah, I think she should have a spin-off all by her own self. If you're listening out there, William, we need that for the YA.
That's a really good idea.
What I like about our top 2 books each of all of us is that all people we've interviewed as well.
Yeah.
Oh, one of us is interviewed. So William Shaw's been on with Leslie, and he's been on with Alex. Trevor Wood's been on with Alex, and he was on the Northern panel, wasn't he, with Lucy? And Potkin and stuff. Sophie Green was on the YA panel that I bagged because I love YA books. Absolutely love kids' books. But I love kids' books as well, where they're like Potkin and Stubbs, where they can be read by adults and they're also brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, when they're just really well written books. So, like, sounds like our number 2s are all brilliant. Gonna look forward to reading some more. I'm gonna add The Bird Watcher and One Way Street to my list.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading some different books, and I think that it's being a member of the book club admin team that has brought me to some different books. And number 1 is for me is that is Death and Dark Water.
Devil in the Dark.
Yeah. This is a book which, although I knew Stuart prior to being a member of the group, his first one was that unique that I just had to have him on. Even though we had this slight hiccup with his first interview, we had to have him rebooked on just so I could talk about this book, because it's so different, and the way that it brings about a historical world of being on a ship, and talking about locked room mysteries and being isolated and not knowing who's done something. That's why I think locked room mysteries are my favourite, because you're not sure what's going to happen. And I've read so many historical novels this year. Because it was my favourite one, it had to go ahead of things like The Silver Collar and The Honey and the Sting, which I have interviewed those authors as well this year, but it was so well detailed whilst at the same time having such good characters that it just had to be at the top. Because if it's beaten away 4 other examples that might have been on the list, it's got to be number 1.
Sam's number 1. I knew instantly that it was going to be her number 1 because it gave me one of my author chat moments of the year when I was watching it. She told the author that she wanted to be him when she grew up. So Sam, tell us about your number 1.
Oh, and bless him, he messages me like, I'm actually talking to him after this because we're recording something, but I'm so excited. So, Brian Cave's A Long Way From Home. Oh, anyone who's listened to anything I've said in the last however many weeks since I read it just knows how much I love this book.
Yeah.
Just Tom Vale ends up a long way from home, as the title implies, looking into a missing person case, and just it covers so many bases. I don't know that this is a book that I would have picked up if it hadn't been for the author chats. I might not have heard of it. Not that I wouldn't have picked it up if I'd have seen it, I would have done, but I hadn't heard of the book. And then I got talking to Brian in the group and we organised this interview. And this book, my soul, my heart, I fell in love with so much that goes on. The characters and the relationships and the friendships and the intricacies and how it kind of grows and spreads and encompasses these whole communities. And you find out about Tom's past, and you wonder where his future lies. He's a former police officer that turns PI. There's so much to love about this book. I mean, I went on and on and on about The Birdwatcher for months, and then I read A Long Way From Home, and I just love it so much. And I've been really fortunate. I've read the beginning of book 2. Oh, my heart, I can't. I get emotional thinking about the book. I just remember sitting here reading it because I was interviewing him that night, and I was trying to, I'd not had time. I've been trying to make time to read it in the weeks leading up to it, and it had been busy with work and things. And then I sat down and I didn't move. I didn't move all day. I just sat, just wrapped in this book. Oh. Honestly, I could sit here and go on for an hour, but I'll stop. But
well, during the preambles to the interviews that we do, Sam has done nothing but tell me how good this book is, and has told me that she's quite willing to read it to me through Facebook because it's not out on audio yet. So I think I've got that coming, Brian. So I'm going to be looking forward to reading that one.
It's all in a Manc accent. No, an American novel in a Manc accent. What an adventure that's going to be for you. I can't do voices at all. But yeah, I mean, anyone who watched the interview, I was just like, I can see myself now thinking about it, beaming again. I love that book. And it's not like a light, easy read. It's gritty and it's disturbing and it's harrowing, really harrowing. I don't like things that make me feel. I like things that are completely just remove you from. But it did that while still making me feel, and I cried and I laughed, and I love the book. There's just no other way to it. And I keep messaging Brian Myther and hurry up with book 2. Poor man hasn't been left alone since I read that book. Kaz, tell us your number 1 before I go on for another hour.
I think, well, it just goes to show the power of us reading for the author chats, doesn't it? Because mine is a book I read for our author chats when I tried to read the entire McIlvenney shortlist in a week because we had them coming up, and I just managed it. And then this book I read for that and has been on my top 10 list at number 1 since I read it, and it's Pine by Francine Toon. And it's when we were interviewing them, we split the authors into 2 teams, didn't we? And we were like, I wonder who's going to win, Team Sam or Team Kaz, and Team Sam won because Sam interviewed Francine.
Yeah.
And I was like, I really hoped it would win, but I just didn't think it would because it's so different. I don't know how it classifies as a crime. The crime happens right at the end, but it's beautifully written. It's set in a small town in Scotland. It's atmospheric. It draws you in. It's eerie in places. It's everything I want in a book.
The setting of Halloween made it slightly unique as well.
Yeah, and I absolutely love it. I love everything about it. I love the characters. I love the story. I love the book cover. I love the eeriness of it. There's nothing wrong about that book. It's just perfection. And it's my read of the year because it's so good.
So what do you think is your likely read for the following year? Because you must have got some in the pipelines for the interviews coming up next year that you might have already read.
I haven't read anything for next year yet. That's what Dave's dropped on the table. Some books by Marion Todd have just turned up.
Yeah.
Marion Todd's great. You're gonna love her. I've got William Shaw next year, who I have read books of, and an honourable mention should probably go to Leslie Thompson's Death of a Mermaid as well, which I read this year and loved. And I don't know if we've got her coming back, but she's great. But no, I don't know. Actually, I've got some books under the tree for authors that I'm interviewing next year, and I know there are some authors I'm really looking forward to chatting to, but I've not read anything.
Yeah, Bella Ellis's Bronte series is something unique for the next year, and that's going to be one of the opening interviews for me in January on the 18th. It's going to be really fascinating as well because you've got a Bronte expert coming on to be opposite to her, so yeah, I'm
going to love that interview because Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte is my all-time favourite book.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for telling me your top 10s and increasing my blooming pile again.
Happy going off to shop. So let's just remind everyone of our top 1, maybe, and then we'll put the top 10 list in the group for everyone to see, so they don't have to just listen to us witter on. So Alex, your top 1 was?
That was Stu Turton's Devil in the Dark Water.
Yeah, Sam, your top 1?
Brian Cave's A Long Way From Home. Please go and buy this book and read it. It is incredible. And
I'm going to say exactly the same about mine. My top 1 is Pine by Francine Toon, and if you haven't read it yet, you absolutely must. Go and buy it now and give it a read. It's fantastic, and it was a well-deserved winner of the McIlvenney Prize. So thanks for coming and sharing our top 10s, everyone.
Thank you so much, and we're looking really forward to interviewing some new people, and I've got 2 Davies for next year as well already, so we're looking forward to showing you some new people, and have a good new year, everybody, too.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.